Hi, friends. Welcome to the first episode of Midnight Horror Picture Show. I'm so glad you're here. Today's guest is someone who I've known for years and have watched evolve from filmmaker to festival runner to creative producer. I've admired the work of Josh Taube since we first competed in a local festival about 10 years ago. He took first place, but more on that later. Josh is not only a brilliant creative, but he has put in the work to understand the business of filmmaking and running not one, but 2 film festivals. I'm very excited to share with you my conversation with Josh Taube. All right. Well, welcome, Josh, to the Midnight Horror Picture Show podcast.
Thank you, Neil. Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So this is our first episode, and I figured what better guest to have on than someone I have been making films, not necessarily with, but alongside for different competitions for many years now. I don't know the exact number on that, but
I can tell you it's probably been 10 because I think it was 2015, right? Didn't you guys do the Charlie Brown one?
That sounds right. Yeah, the Henipin County Massacre, which was a mess. In retrospect, it was a good learning experience.
Sure.
That was one of the first shorts I did. Well, it was the first short I did for the Horror Film Roulette competition, which we'll get to later.
Yeah.
But I think that was the year after, or like the autumn after Birdman had come out, and I was like, I'm only doing a 5-minute film. How hard can it be to do it in one shot?
Right. Yeah.
The answer to that is very hard. So, and you won, I believe, that year, because that year was when it was still in Sterling Heights at the hotel.
Yeah, it was like the Holiday Inn or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But we had it in one of the conference rooms on like a portable projector screen, and we got to watch our film there, and I believe you won that year with Wiper. Yes. That was it. No, which was fantastic. And I saw that, I'm sitting there like, oh, I made this film. And then I see Wiper and I'm like, what the hell? This is like cheating. He's better,
Thanks, Neil. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. And was that your first win or your second?
That was my second. The year before that, 2014, was my first time entering. So that was year 2 of Horror Film Roulette when I started. Yeah.
Right. So tell us a little bit about how you got into filmmaking.
Yeah. I've been in, it's going to be 20 years this year that I've been involved in some capacity. I started at about 14 years old. Making films, and it was actually all done on the computer. I had bought this game called The Movies. I don't know if you ever heard of it. Okay. Yeah. So yeah. So that's what got me into it. I thought it was really cool. I downloaded the game, or I bought the CD. Obviously, it was a CD at the time, and I made these little shorts based around it, and I found myself really getting fascinated by the whole process, because what I thought was really cool is, for such a little game, it had so many just all the details of like filmmaking between pre-production, production, and post-production. You're doing that whole thing in this like $50 game, and I thought it was just amazing that you could, essentially make a whole short film. And sure, a lot of the scenes were pre-made, so you can only do so much. But I found that even with the 100 or 200 different scenes that were already curated, there was still a lot to be able to do. And especially with the close-ups and wides that they had, there was a lot of variety. You could really get creative with it. And you can make your horror films. You can make an action film, a romance film. And then there were a bunch of patches you could download online through like GitHub or whatever and all that, and you could really add to it. You could make your own characters, and then I found out you could like actually use a microphone and sync your voice to the character's mouth and be able to make them talk. And so it started to kind of develop into this whole thing. And then about a year, or I'd say a year and a half later, my grandpa gifted me a flip video camera. I don't know if you remember those, but the USB came right out of the camera and it recorded in stunning 720p and HD, and it was great. I mean, the audio was already in the camera, so you could just plug and play. And so we used that and we started making little short films. We did a lot of parodies in the beginning. We did, based on like horror movies and things like that. And then it just started to kind of go from there. And I'm like, okay, maybe I can start with a short film. And so I made a short film. And when I had my first job at like 18, I was doing little shorts with some of the people at Best Buy. I used to work there. And so, some of the guys that were in the camera department, they knew how to operate the camera. And so we did little films together, and we did our first feature like 13 years ago. And terrible. It was not good, but it was great for us, and
what was
and yeah, and so it was called Unfinished Business.
All right, give me the tag.
Basically, so I was the lead role, which didn't make any sense for this, but it was a guy who literally went to the movies with his sister, comes out of the movie, and she gets kidnapped, and they knock me unconscious, and I wake up in some warehouse, and I'm basically on a quest to find my sister while there's two rivaling gangs fighting each other in the midst of all of that.
Oh, wow. All right. So you must have had like what are we talking? Like $1 to $5 million budget? I mean, if you were in an indie.
Yeah, $1 to $5 budget. You're right.
Exactly.
But surprisingly, I had like 30 or 40 actors throughout the span of this thing. Like, and they all worked at Best Buy, which is hilarious, but they got into it. I mean, we found some pretty cool locations to shoot most of it. It's just, obviously didn't really have much of a lighting department, didn't have much of a sound department. I was the only editor, which, I mean, that tends to work out, but still at that time, like I didn't even have that much experience editing, so there was definitely a lot that that needed work. But I'd say though, looking back on it, I'm like, how did I convince all these people to like spend 12 hours a day, like over the course of a 20-day shoot to do this thing? And yeah, it was a big learning experience though. And it definitely told me I need to go into shorts and figure out, how to really make a film before I tackle a feature again.
100%, man. And that learning process and realizing that, I mean, I think that parallels a little bit me talking about the Henipin County thing, right? Where it's very much you bite off more than you can chew. And then it's back to, okay, not necessarily back to the drawing board, but how do I do this better next time? What do I need to learn to, and I think that goes, because one thing that I do think is really interesting is you brought up how did I get, people to donate all of this time to work on this, and like part of it is like the excitement of, lights and cameras and whatever. But I think the other part of it speaks to people who are passionate about what they're doing, right?
Yes.
I think passion for your craft is magnetic. And I know you personally, so I can tell, that you're very passionate about the projects you've worked on, like, the films you've made. And I'm sure that that's part of like being on a set though, is having someone who is the, ideally there should be more than one, but having anchor people who are keeping the morale up, who are like, hey, we're here to do this, and it might not be 100% fun all the time, but we're going to make it fun where we can, and we're going to try and get this done. So I think that is a skill that is not, I mean, it might be teachable, but I think it's more intrinsic to how passionate are you about this, right?
Oh yeah, I 100% agree, and I think that's the thing is like, I could tell you right now that I'm not the best director, I'm not the best writer, etc. But, one area that I've thrived in and I can say is probably my best skill is networking and bringing, people together and utilizing their talent where it fits, and putting them in places that they're excited about. Because I think you can, there's some people that are good at things, but they don't necessarily want to do the thing. I know that personally. I get, hired on to build websites all the time, and I don't love it. But I know how to do it, but it's not my best work because I don't love it. And, but yeah, I think that's such a huge thing in filmmaking because, you could be a painter, right? But you don't necessarily need anybody to do the painting. I mean, sure, it'd be nice to have some help in some areas, but at the end of the day, that could be a solo craft. Same thing with photography. Yes, you might need a model, but let's say you do landscapes or nature or, animals or whatever, right? It's going to be a solo project, most likely. All of these other art forms, for the most part, are things you could do on an individual basis. Filmmaking is one of those, and it's a 0.01% chance that you're doing it by yourself, unless you're like Bo Burnham and, you shoot an entire movie in your house.
Right.
99.9% of the time, you're probably going to have at least one person to probably a dozen or more people involved in the project. And so the only way to do that is to be sort of a salesman in your own way. And I think the best way to sell it is to show your energy behind it. And you go, man, I'm putting together this project. This, and this is going to happen. We want it to do this. We want it to be that. We're hoping it'll go here. Now, obviously, the more honest and authentic you are about it, the better. But, some people like to fluff it up and be like, it's going to be worth millions of dollars and Netflix is going to pick it up. Like, I don't ever put any of that kind of stuff out there. I just go, look, this is the idea. Do you want to see it come to life with me? It may require sacrifice on your end, but I will tell you this, I'm in it until it's done. And so if you are in it too, then let's do it, and we'll figure out all of the other things, the other rewards. If I'm rewarded, you'll be rewarded too. Know that, and that's what I think is what people need to go at it with. I mean, I think just being transparent is better than saying, do this, this, and that. And then they're like, okay, but, do I get paid or what? And, oh, well, maybe. I'd rather just go, no, you're probably not going to get paid. No, you're probably not going to get this. But here's what I have. And here's who I have with me. Do you see this being worthwhile? Then come on forward and we'll figure this out together. Because frankly, I'm the one that's going to be spending the money, the time, and all of that stuff. I have huge investment in all of that. So, that's where I bring these people on in that way. And I think it's important to find that. And I know some people might argue like, wow, you're just using these people. But it's like, no, if they believe in the project too, they're not being used. If anything, they might find more fulfillment in their own lives being part of something like this.
No, 100%. And I think when you talk about, no budget, micro budget film, that's a very important point. It's offering what you can to really remain respectful of people's time. And I'm sure that's something we'll touch on again and again on this podcast. But, what's the cost benefit for someone to help you, right? Well, the cost is their time. What's the benefit? If you can't pay them, what can you offer them? And I'm not talking about pizza on set. I'm talking about, how is this going? Honestly, how is this going to help someone else? If you're like, hey, I have a film that I wrote and I want to direct and I think it's good. Help me make it. Yeah. Some people may be like, hell yeah, dude, I like you. I'm on board. But to go outside of your immediate friend group, like you need more than that. And so for me, what it ended up being is I was like, hey, you know what? I don't got money. Because I can tell you right now, sitting here, I've made X amount of short films. I got a streaming deal on one, and I have made a total of $7 from Trauma Entertainment. So, and that's the whole thing, it's very much, hey, all right, what can I offer you? Well, if you're an actor and you want to work with us, I can show you my past work and like what we've been doing. So there's proof of like, this is something you can probably use on your reel. But then further than that, it's like, I can guarantee you I'm going to spend $1,000, $2,000 on submitting this to festivals throughout the year. My track record's pretty good for festival acceptance, right? So your performance, your camera work, your whatever, your music, it's going to be seen. It's going to be seen by audiences. And then third, which cost me nothing but time, was getting people IMDb credits. That's like such a simple thing to set up, where it's like, okay, anyone can contribute. It's like Wikipedia. Anyone can contribute to IMDb. I set actors up pages who didn't have one, and it doesn't take a lot of time, but it really is that cost benefit of, like, there's a reason. Make yourself someone that other people want to work with, right?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's what it is too, is like, but I think if you just care about the art itself, it just sort of, it comes full circle. If you're putting 100% into it, and, you're spending you're just thinking about it, you're living it, and it's not just some little side hustle. It's like, it really does need to kind of feel like your reason for being. I think that's what really attracts it too. But yeah, there's something about making it feel like a party, and a party you want to be involved in. And you're right, the track record is everything. And if you don't have the track record, then you need to be really proficient in writing, or you need to be with a writer who's got something that, people would want to make. So yeah, you might not have a film portfolio, but perhaps what you've written is compelling enough. And now, okay, your job is to sell yourself on that one camera operator, or save up the money and invest in that particular person, shoot in one location. Maybe it's just a short where it's just a conversation at a dinner table, and that's about it too. I mean, there's a lot that you can do now, to where you don't need to put together 5, 10, 20 grand. You could literally, I'd say, if anybody can raise up to $1,000, that's enough to get what you need. And in this day and age, we have gig work out there like DoorDash and Uber and all of that stuff. Raise that money over the course of 6 months, sock it away, do some Fiverr gigs, whatever. And then, spend that money, invest it into what you're doing, hire that impressive camera operator that, charges $500 a day, but you only need him for a day or her for a day. And then be an editor. Just, you don't have to be the best editor, but just learn how to cut. And I think that's it, and then you get into that next thing. And because like with Horror Film Roulette, when we won that first year, it was our first attempt as well. It was myself and Nick Goodwin, and he was a makeup artist, and a little bit of a art director. I had a camera. I think I had like a Canon T3i. It was nothing impressive, and we literally shot it overnight. It was due like, I think it was like a Wednesday, and he asked me Tuesday morning to do it. And so he had half the idea thought of. We came together, we thought of it, we shot it overnight. I finished it around noon and turned it in. So it was literally like 18 hours, I think, in total to do this thing, from writing to filming to editing, the entire thing. And then we ended up winning.
All right.
Yeah. And so that's the thing, is like, but it was in one location, right? The actors were him, his wife, and his son. I was holding a camera. I had the camera on a tripod, was holding a boom, and then I had a light off to the side, and I was the only crew for that. The lighting wasn't great. The camera work wasn't super great, but the story was still interesting. It was the only one that was different from everybody else. Everybody else had like dramas, or they tried to have little jump scares. Ours was funny. And, but it had some little scary moments too, but it was a nice blend of it. So it stood out from the rest, and that's what allowed us to win, which I still blame myself to this day why we have comedies in our horror film roulette. It's my fault. Yeah.
Well, speaking of that, first off, let me recap on, or at least touch on two things. One,
sure.
Don't you sold yourself a little short on not being like the best director, not the best. I think your work speaks for itself, and especially watching the past few shorts that you've just made to, or you've premiered at Horror Film Roulette outside of competition. Your work has just been getting better and better for 12 years, what I've seen at least. And but that's like not even starting from nothing though. Talk about because one of your shorts got picked up by Alter, which for those in the horror community will recognize the name, but Alter is a YouTube channel that features up and coming horror directors shorts, and a lot of those go on to, we hear those names again, right?
Yeah, it's very true. And I believe the channel is somewhere around 6 to 7 million subscribers too. So they've been building quite a bit.
Right.
When I got on there, I think it was about 1.5 million at the time. So this was in 2021. And it was for a film I had made for Horror Film Roulette. It was just being a sponsor like usual, and it was something called Cat's Game. We submitted it because I had loved the channel. I thought the films were awesome. And then they had an opportunity to submit it. And I said, why not? Right. See what it can do. And it was, I think it was 3 months later, I heard back from them. And then it was almost 1.5 years until it actually went on the channel. And especially because they're so popular. And I'm sure so much of it has been backed up from all these other films. And now you got to pay to enter, and then you might not even get accepted still. So it's a whole process, but I mean, rightfully so. Like, they're a popular channel. They provide very good films on there. And our film, I think, is resting at about 112,000 views, which was really cool. Never seen that before, for something I've produced. And I've even seen reaction videos from people online too, like, filming their reactions and stuff. And some of them are like, what the hell is this? It's hilarious. But then you got others that are like, oh, it was this and this and this and this. Oh my gosh. So it was like kind of neat how divided the audience is for this. And I think that's the sign of a successful film, is when both sides kind of argue what it is, or they hate it or they love it. And nobody's like, yeah, whatever. Like, it's something that is a discussion piece. And so to be able to have that has been very exciting too. But Alter was great. They did pay me for it. I don't know if they still do that now, but they paid like $200 for the non-exclusive rights for it, which was cool.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So, but no, a really easy process. And honestly, it's definitely been inspiring for me because, running these other festivals, having a platform that has all of these films curated and can be released on a weekly basis. I mean, it's a great way to build a YouTube channel, to basically use, other films out there and put them onto a YouTube channel. And then they get their exposure, but also you get the rights to use it as well. It's a beautiful, like, mutual thing.
So no, I think that's great. And I think you brought up a really interesting point as well about investing in yourself, because really that's what it all is you can't expect other people to invest in your vision until you're invested in your vision. So let's talk about the festivals. 2 festivals that Josh is in charge of running. So let's start off. We already talked about a little bit about Horror Film Roulette. How did you make the transition from Contestant to one of the co-directors?
Yeah. So I've known Eric for a while, a very long time, actually, probably almost 20 years too with him. And, obviously as a contestant, it was my friend Nick. He recommended we try this out. He's like, we can make a film, see how it goes. And so the first year, obviously, we had won. The second year we won. And at that point, I was like, if we win a third time, am I going to hurt his festival and people are going to think this is rigged or they're friends, or I didn't want the ethics of the competition to be compromised. And so I had the idea and I ran it by Eric to be a sponsor for the event because I believed in what it had to offer. And so I told him, I'm like, what if I give you like $100 or I buy like the first place prize or something? And at that time it was like a gimbal or something. It wasn't anything super special. And he's like, yeah, that'd be great. And I'm like, and my caveat would be if I could have a sponsor film at the end, it'd be the last film that plays. He's like, done. And I'm like, okay, cool. Then that's how we can still be at these festivals, be involved, and, selfishly have a little bit of attention at the very end of it. So we did that for a few years. And then obviously COVID came around. And so we had sponsored 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019. 2020 rolls around. We know what happened. Horror Film Roulette did not happen that year. And when 2021 came around, Eric had told me, hey, I'm having a little bit of difficulty getting the help I need right now. Some of his partners, rightfully so, were like, hey, it's been like 7 years. There's other things they want to explore and things like that. And so I was like, so what, you're going to just end it? And he's like, yeah, 7 years, that's a long time. And I'm like, it is, but I think you're in the beginning stages, Eric. I think you could make this way bigger. And frankly, it's one of the things I look forward to every year. And so he's like, well, I need the help for that. And I go, you have it. It's me. And then so he's like, you want to do all this? I go, I already know how to do this stuff, man. It can't be that difficult. And he's like, oh, there's a lot. So I look at it, and of course, it's a lot. But, I started looking at what was difficult, what was overwhelming, and realizing, one of the biggest things was financing this thing and having the money for it. Well, he was, as you know, allowing for free entry every year. And it's great. And I love that. But then what do the filmmakers do? They don't really take it as serious because they think it's free. So they'd sign up and half of them wouldn't submit a film.
Right.
So I was like, we need to legitimize this a little bit more, make it a more of a premier thing. And here's how we do it, Eric. We're going to charge every filmmaker $25 to start. And we're going to upgrade it over time, but we're going to make the prize money worth it over time too. But we need to raise money to be able to make this thing go. You shouldn't, because he was losing money out of his own pocket every year doing this. And I'm like, why? You shouldn't have to pay anything. If anything, you should make some money. But we've always agreed to just reinvest it into our film festivals, and that's what we've had. So Eric and I have not made any money personally in the years we've done it together. We've believed in it so much that we'll just upgrade our equipment, or we'll upgrade, maybe the venue or things like that. But, by then, so, we decided, okay, we're going to charge. I know some filmmakers are not going to love it, but I think they're going to love that now they're going to fight for $500 versus a gimbal, right. So that's exciting. So yeah, we upped that. We figured out how to get a deal with Imagine, and use their biggest screen, which has got 250 seats, but now everybody's in comfy recliners. They're shooting on laser projection. They got the Dolby sound, everything is extra special for the filmmakers, which I know that's what I want, right? You want it to be the best possible viewing experience.
Well, it's definitely a step up from the banquet room with the portable screen. So
yeah, exactly. So, I know we had AMC, but even AMC, I was still kind of not loving, and they didn't let you use DCP at that time. It was mainly like a Blu-ray. Now they actually let you do DCP, but Eric was doing things on a Blu-ray for the entirety of it. And so now we can do it on DCP, and, and everything's really nice. We got that 2x39x1 format, which is just gorgeous, widescreen. And so, yeah, so obviously, as you know, I think things have gotten pretty interesting over the last 4 years. We're now having prize amounts that are $2,000. I know for the 10th year, we did 10 grand. Kind of hard to keep that one going every year, but we were able to get the sponsors in on it. But yeah, I don't hear very many festivals that are willing to offer $2,000, a trophy, we're bringing in special guests like John Dilworth, who did Courage the Cowardly Dog. So I really do think it's still, this is just the beginning of things.
No, and I think that like that's a really good point. When you say, I looked at this as like not as just the beginning of it and not where it should end. It feels it feels almost like a band that you liked when you were a teenager, and then you're like, oh man, they sold out or like whatever. But it's like,
Yeah.
no, they just evolved. Like they can't keep doing the same thing forever. And why would you want Horror Film Roulette to stay the same forever? Like if it's going to be something, and if it's going to be a platform you're going to keep showing your work at, because I think we have such a wonderful community of filmmakers, especially in the horror space.
Absolutely.
I mean, I've known Eric for a couple years before I started doing the festival. Had personally asked me the second year, well, I think he asked me the first year as well, to make a film for Horror Film Roulette. And I was like, I'm a little busy right now, whatever. Because in the beginning, the competition, we never explained the competition. Would you like to explain to our listeners what Horror Film Roulette is?
Yeah, I guess that would be helpful.
Right.
So it's a very simple concept. Essentially, we have a kickoff that starts the month before. So it's usually the very beginning of September, typically around the first or second week. And filmmakers will either come to this kickoff or they could do it online through an email. They will spin a wheel, a roulette wheel, in fact. And it will have 6 genres with a bonus genre potentially. And whatever subgenre of horror that filmmaker lands on, they will have 4 weeks to make a 5-minute horror film. And those subgenres range anywhere from slasher to supernatural, sci-fi, monster, you name it. There's a bunch to it. And that's the only stipulation, is you just have to follow that subgenre. You don't have to worry about a line of dialogue. You don't have to worry about, a specific location or a character name. Now, we do have a feature called Trick or Treat, where you can, for bonus points, apply this stipulation, but it's not necessary. And I think that's the thing I like about it, is it broadens the creativity a little bit more. It doesn't quite narrow it down to one specific thing. And you don't have to hear 12 people named Tom Smith, throughout the entirety of the event. But yeah, that's really it. Just a very casino based style applied to filmmaking.
See, and I think that's such the originality of it versus other competitions I've seen, because I haven't seen anything else like it out there, right?
Yeah, I haven't either.
Right. As a filmmaker who comes back year after year to do this competition, I mean, clearly you're never making the same film twice, but also it pushes you to walk in and say, hey, you know what? I'm putting up my money because I'm going to make a film. I'm already committed to this. I have no idea what I'm going to make. Yep. And then spin that wheel and get a subgenre that maybe you're not the most familiar with. Or because for me, I've always been a fan of supernatural and slashers and stuff. The year I spun zombie, I was like, oh, bummer. Because I was like, I've never been a huge zombie fan. But you know what I did is I took that first week and every night watched 2 zombie movies to get a better understanding of the genre. And not to necessarily replicate anything, but to get more of a basis of the rules and how people have played with those rules and what can I do to bring my voice a little bit to this genre. And it was just as much a learning experience as it was a creation experience, right? But it's so fun. It's so fun every time. And this is another line that I will repeat on every episode, I'm sure, and until the day I die. But adversity, scarcity of resources, of time, of whatever, all of that breeds creativity. And it's so important to have those restrictions. And that's why when you guys started charging, I was like, oh, all right, well, this is new. Now I got to pay to make my film. But then you're more invested in it. And 100%, because that goes, I mean, it's the same with submitting to festivals. You're not going to submit to a festival that has a $50 fee for, to a $50 submission fee. If you don't believe your project is good enough to get into a festival that charges $50 for, right? And this one, like, it's got to be the same. It's got to be the same thing. Like, you have to be either fine with losing $25, but at least you made something, or you're burning $25 for nothing. And I think money motivates a lot of people. So, I'd rather not lose 25, $50 when I put that down to make a film. I'm going to turn in something, and I'll be damned, I'm going to try and win that 2K, right? So
exactly. And that's the thing is I think about that, and with the 50, now that it's $50, which I know it's like, whoa, double, but obviously we started at $500 as the prize based off of the 25. Now we're at $2,000. Really it could be 1,000, and that could justify the 50. But I think of it as, if as long as you make it into the top 25, which is not always likely, but if you make it in the top 25, that $50 gets you to watch your film on the screen. You want to rent that theater by yourself, and it's a couple grand. So I think of it that way as well. You're paying to see your thing on your film on that screen. And so there's a lot of value to it. And then on top of it, now it's something you've made, it's done, and you can, and now that we're having people submit through Film Freeway, they can, with a click of a button, go to the next festival. It's already done. All that, filling it out, cast information, thumbnail, everything is already done. And so we basically set you up to go nuts, go apply to that festival, do that festival. But I think what it is we wanted to encourage people like to go beyond these festivals. Like, it's great to make a film for Horror Film Roulette, but why not just make it for you to put in other things, to advance yourself in that area if you want to be a filmmaker, or you want that career. Now, some people just do it because they love it, and I get it, and actually respect that a lot too. But, there's other people that love it and they want that to be their life. And so what a great way to do it by something like this that, yes, there's a little bit of a narrowing down with the subgenre, but at least it pushes you in a direction to go, all right, I've got to make this thing in 4 weeks. I got to finesse it. I got to do this. And let's say you don't necessarily win the festival. You could always take that concept, redo it if you really wanted to, reshoot it even, and, submit it to the even bigger festivals.
100%. And I mean, for the past 5 years at least, I've taken every submission that I've done for Horror Film Roulette, and usually I will do a longer cut because I love writing dialogue. And that's something that, like, when it comes to, we got 4 weeks, I'm in the last week, and I have a 7-minute film and it needs to be down to 5. Well, I know what's gotta go, but killing your darlings is a little harder, that when you're staring them in the eyes. So what I'll usually do is I'll be like, okay, well, I'm cutting here. I have at least 2 sequences, right, where I will do a first pass of the film where I trim nothing, and I'm like, this is the film I want to make, right? And then I will copy that and put it in another timeline and title it HFR cut. And that's when it's like, all right, I'll have, my wife Jen or my sister-in-law Dan come in the room, and I'm like, help me cut this down. What's not working? What am I just in love with that doesn't really matter, And they're pretty good at it. I'm humbled often, but but yeah, no, I'll take that longer cut. That's the cut that goes out to festivals because it doesn't have to be 5 minutes. It can be a little longer. It's been very successful for my team. We've been shown all around North America. We've got to meet some really cool people. It's part of the reason why I'm starting this podcast right now.
Yeah.
Because I think in the space of independent horror filmmakers, everyone's here because of what you and I just talked about. They're here making stuff because they're passionate about it, right? I don't think there's an independent, no budget horror maker who is not a fan of horror, right? Like, you do this because you're a fan of the genre. And I think that's a through line through everyone, I've met at different festivals and talked to and worked with And I just think it's a basis for a great community that should know about Horror Film Roulette. So speaking of Horror Film Roulette and Film Freeway, last year you started a new initiative where Horror Film Roulette Original is a 4-week competition that anyone from anywhere can join,
Yep.
right? You can virtually spin the roulette wheel. You don't have to be there in person in Michigan. But anyone from anywhere, you've had entries from Mexico.
United Kingdom. We had Australia did one, and then Spain. We had one from Spain.
Yeah, that's wild that this small competition has now grown, and I'm, in no small part to your help with doing so and marketing it and making it what it's become. I think that's a really fantastic thing. But last year you introduced a second competition, which is for films that are already completed, just like a normal film festival.
The graveyard. Yeah.
The graveyard. That's it.
Yep.
So is that going to continue in 2025 and beyond?
Absolutely. It's now going to just be a regular thing. So it'll always be on Film Freeway. We're going to have it probably opened up in June to where people can start submitting. And then they'll have probably up until the deadline for the 4-week competition to submit it. And then, the winner of that, it's not necessarily a cash prize, but it will be a trophy, and it will be singled out as the last film of the night. So just like it was where I had a sponsor film, this kind of takes place of that now, and that film can show. And what I like about it is that it can be up to 15 minutes versus a 5-minute short film. So if you have something that has like a 12-minute runtime, it can compete. And we also lower the fee since there's not a cash prize in it. So it's usually, I think it's because it's $50 typically to enter, somewhere around 30 to 40 to compete with that. So still pretty affordable and low, cost to get in.
Right. Absolutely. No, I think that's a wonderful addition to the competition to help it grow, to help to introduce it to more filmmakers. So you said that opens up in June. Kickoff is probably around mid-September for the 4-week competition.
Probably early September. I don't think we have it locked down just yet, but it'll probably be, my guess, it seems like everyone liked the Tuesday night, so it might be a Tuesday night situation for that too. And then we'll just give them the extra 4 days. I'm merciful sometimes. But I think we're gonna aim for something like that in September. My guess is, looking at my calendar, probably around the 9th is my guess for the kickoff for Horror Film Roulette this year.
Wonderful. All right. You heard it here first.
Yeah.
So besides being a fantastic filmmaker with your own accolades and coming into Horror Film Roulette and revitalizing it and growing it exponentially to where it's gone and where it's going in the future, you started a second festival.
I know.
And this one's like your baby, right?
This one is, yes.
And we are, at the time people are hearing this, less than a week out from the second annual Comedy Roll. So Josh, tell the listeners about the Comedy Roll.
Yeah. Very similar layout to Horror Film Roulette. Instead of a wheel, it is a dice roll. So you have 2 dice. You have a genre dice, which is the blue dice, die, and that one has all of your genres. So you have like slapstick, dark comedy, absurdist, silent film, and then we have our Joker, which that's the one that is the bonus genre. So people get to vote on that beforehand. This year it's mockumentary as the Joker genre. So they roll that die first, and if they like the genre, they can be done and move on. But if they don't like what they get, they can roll the purple die, and that is the modifier die, or what I like to call the punchline. And when they throw that one, they could land on something like roll again, audience choice, where the audience around them gets to decide what their genre is, roller's choice, where they get to choose, MC choice, where I get to choose, and then everybody's favorite, the punishment, which is just like the trick or treat, but you'll roll a D20 die. It's this giant purple die. And whatever you land on, we have a subsection of different punishments on there. And if you complete the punishment, you'll get a 5-point bonus. If you don't complete it, you'll lose 5 points. And so that's another way to kind of keep things interesting. And we've had some fun stuff with that. Like we have one team that all of their dialogue has to be improvised. They cannot write dialogue in the script. And I know some people like, how do you figure that out? And it's like, I think you'll know in some cases. But also I asked them to show me some behind the scenes of it. And that'll be my way of validating it for them to get the points. So, but also it takes away the fun if you don't do it. What the heck? That's the whole point. So, but yeah, we've got some really cool things with that. And yeah, same deal, 4 weeks, 5-minute film. And then after that time period, which this year it's May 20th, it's going to premiere at Imagine in Royal Oak as well.
And we will have a link to the website. And if at the time this episode gets released, there are any tickets left, I urge everyone to go buy them. However, historically, there will probably not be any tickets left. So are you going to do a streaming option? It does.
Of course. Yeah. And we've decided to make the streaming option a lot more affordable. We've had a lot of feedback from it, and I realize it's a lot to pay, $15 to $20 to stream. So this year is only going to be $5 to stream.
Oh, wow. See, that's awesome. Especially getting that just to people to see, $5 is, go watch it. Honestly, if you're listening to this podcast, spend the $5 to watch the films. It's just a great way to support the local artists, because at the end of the day, you're not making a film so you can watch it. You're making a film so an audience can watch it. And I think the more people who can get their eyes on these local filmmakers, these independent artists is a wonderful thing. And
it's a great way to obviously support the festival too, to just keep it running. And, like I said, any real profits that we make, we try to put that toward just making the event bigger or giving out more rewards or, things like that. And we're thankful to have the sponsorship. Honestly, that's the big key for this to work out, is having the sponsors that we had. We've had Grimace, we've had Hanish's auctions, and heck, Good Looking Hot Sauce helped us out with it too. And so, it's been great seeing that. We had a law firm, Joe Sigleric with Sam Bernstein. They paid for the theater last year for Comedy Roll. Oh, wow. So I think that's a big part of how we can keep things running pretty smoothly. I mean, it's not like we're a struggling festival. Like, we're able to keep the reserves going and making sure it's good. And if we didn't have a sponsorship, that's what a lot of these ticket sales are for, is just to pad it out. So that way, if we have a year where it's a little light or maybe not as many competitors, I mean, we can't guarantee the same 25 people to compete every year. So this keeps us, safe. And I think we have a nice rhythm going when it comes to how we keep the films or how we keep the festival running and keeping it monetized. So that way, Eric and I are not pulling money out of our pockets to keep it running,
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. And you shouldn't have to. I mean, at the end of the day, what you're doing as much as it is as much as it is a service to the filmmaking community, why should you two have to pay for it? Right. I think filmmakers, it's an investment in your own work if you're going to get it up on that screen, right? You're paying to put it in front of an audience, which is the same thing you're doing with a submission fee to any festival, right?
Exactly.
I will tell you, if you've never had a film shown on a screen in a theater, it doesn't get old. But to be there and to experience it together, I mean, it's the theater experience. That's why people go to theaters. It's a shared experience, right? So when it's your work up there and then you hear people talking in the lobby about it afterwards, it's great. It's wonderful.
Dilworth said it the best. It's an incubator, what we have here. We're starting with ideas to help build people into the creatives that they're destined to be. And so, so for some people, they've already kind of figured that out and they just happen to want to be a part of it. But some people, their beginnings start with us and they start to see, where they can go. And from there, I mean, yeah, I look at, Neil, you, for example, like where you started, and you and I had a roughly the same kind of quality, in the beginning of things. Everything was kind of as homemade as it could be, friends as actors and things like that. But now you're doing all these incredible visual effects. You've got atmosphere, you've got talent behind you. Your cinematography is impressive. Your performers have gotten better over the years too. It's just, it says a lot that people see it and they go, all right, I know what to do. I know what the game plan is here. We got to step it up. We can't be looking, worse than what we were. It's only progress every film.
100%. 100%. Yeah. No, that's absolutely it. That's absolutely it. And like to see people on my team, to like see them grow in their abilities over the years, whether that be acting or camera or, like any of that, to see them bring new things and learn new things. It's a wonderful thing to experience because it's building a smaller community inside of a larger community, right?
Exactly.
That makes the most sense. It's an incubator for the talent, right? You are fostering talent through these festivals. You're fostering local talent and giving them an excuse not only to make things, but a way to show it and share it. And and that's a wonderful cause. So thank you for being a part of providing that, not just to the local community, but now nationally, internationally. Comedy Roll is usually, kickoff's usually on April 1st, right?
Yep, always April 1st. Yep.
April 1st, April Fool's Day. So there you go.
Easy to remember.
Keep an eye out for that in 2026. We'll link to the Comedy Rolls website as well. Yeah, so what's next on your list? So you got Comedy Roll next week, and then we're not until September for Horror Film Roulette. Yeah. What do you got going?
Yeah, so there's oh man, there's a lot that's under wraps right now. There's a project that I am working on that I know you're involved in, but we won't say what's. Yeah. I'm hoping to have a feature under my belt in the next year or two, hopefully. And that's really all I can say because the rest is under NDA.
There you go.
But yeah, we're working on that. And I think the thing is how do I get this community to be more involved as a production company in a sense? So how do we become this next A24 or just some sort of distributor while making films too? I think about all those distribution companies out there, Neon, A24 and all that and what they are. And, they started as distributors, then they became part financiers, and now they're making films, financing them and distributing them all in one go. And so I think there's something to be said there. And especially with Alter, Amaletto, all of these YouTube channels, they're already kind of doing that with their curation. And so I'm thinking, how do I get more involved in that space with other filmmakers? So if there's anybody listening to it that wants to be involved in something like that, that is definitely something I would love to have a conversation about. But I think that's the next step in order to, as filmmakers, get our work seen and financed. I think that's the big hurdle. We have the ideas, we have the team. We don't have necessarily the capital to put behind it to make it as great as it could be.
Right. No, I think, yeah, that sounds fantastic. It's a lofty goal, right?
Yeah, it is, of course.
But it's a great one, and it makes logical sense for where you're at and what you've been doing. You have these two festivals. You have people already producing content. Producing films. So how do we transfer that over to, all right, well, let's get some money into it to, make something that we can then distribute as well. And how do we, because as much as everyone is passionate, like we said earlier, right? I think as much as everyone starts with a passion, there is a point where you gotta start looking for returns, right? And that's just the business side of it. And that's a good thing. That's what we want. I think that's what if you're serious about filmmaking, like that's what you should want. You start with that passion. Everybody's going to cheer you on when you start making money. When you sell your first film, when you get something distributed, like that's a big deal. And I think that's a wonderful, when that happens with what you're doing with producing that first film, I will be in theaters I will stream it on whatever platform, and I will be there to celebrate with you guys and the rest of our filmmaking community, because it's huge, man. Well, you're doing big things.
Thanks, Neil. Yeah, I think it's just time to do bigger things. We're growing in a lot of things, and it's obviously I care about it, so it's time to put those words into action. And I think the best way to do so is to, get deeper into the community, not just in Michigan, but around the world, really. And what better way than through the internet, through YouTube, and being a cheerleader for other art forms, for other artists and filmmakers, and in return, hope that will grow what we're trying to accomplish.
Well said. Well said, man. All right. So we're going to have the links to Horror Film Roulette, the Comedy Roll, Cat's Game, all of that will be in the episode description. Where can people find you, Josh?
Well, they can follow me if they would like, just Josh Taube. And I do have a website, joshtaube.com. Follow us on the Comedy Roll and the Horror Film Roulette channels, because those will probably point you in those directions too. But obviously just reach out to me. I mean, I'm an open book, and I'm always down to collaborate with anybody who's got something worth collaborating for.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for taking the time today. I appreciate our chat, man. And when we can talk more about that project, I'm sure I'll have you back on to talk more about it.
Oh, it'll be discussed here for sure.
All right, man. Good to talk to you.
All right. Thanks, Neil.
Thank you. And thank you for taking the time to tune into our first episode. As I mentioned, make sure to go check out the link to Cat's Game in the episode description. If you're in the Metro Detroit area, get a ticket to the Comedy Roll next week. And if you're a filmmaker or aspire to be one, make sure you mark Horror Film Roulette on your calendar in September. So what do you think? I'm new to this, so cut me a little slack. Let me know your thoughts on Instagram at Midnight Horror Picture Show, and please subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to us on. Our theme music is by Nick Ferrari. You can find him at Nick_Ferrari on Instagram. New episodes will release every other Wednesday, and until then, stay spooky and keep supporting indie horror.